Right now, as you watch this video, there's a part of you that feels guilty about not being productive. Maybe you're lying in bed or sitting on your couch or taking a break between tasks, and somewhere in the back of your mind, a voice whispers that you should be doing something more useful. That voice isn't your own. It's the voice of a system that has convinced you that your worth is measured by your output, that rest is laziness, and that exhaustion is virtue. But what if I told you that your decision to rest, to do absolutely nothing, is one of the most radical acts of rebellion you can perform in our modern world? If this speaks to something inside you, hit subscribe. This channel explores truths others are afraid to say. We live in a culture that has weaponized productivity against the human soul. Every moment of stillness is seen as wasted potential, every pause as moral failure. We've been taught to optimize, to hustle, to grind until our bodies break and our spirits hollow out. But beneath this relentless drive lies a profound spiritual and psychological truth that our ancestors understood and we've forgotten. Rest is not the absence of purpose, it's the presence of being. Today, we'll explore why your refusal to be constantly productive is actually a revolutionary act of self-preservation and spiritual rebellion. We'll uncover how genuine rest threatens the very systems that profit from your exhaustion, and why reclaiming your right to exist without producing anything might be the most important battle you fight. Chapter 1. The Exhaustion Economy. There's an entire economy built on your tiredness, not just the coffee shops and energy drink companies, but something far more insidious. A system that has learned to extract value from your inability to stop, your fear of being still, your deep-seated belief that rest equals worthlessness. This exhaustion economy doesn't just want your labor during work hours, it wants your mind during your commute, your attention during your lunch break, your creativity during your evenings, and your anxiety during your supposed rest. Consider how we talk about time off. We don't call it living, we call it time off from the real thing. We don't say we're resting, we say we're not working, defining our existence by what we're not producing. Even our vacations have become productive endeavors, optimized for maximum experience, documented for social media, planned with the efficiency of military operations. We've forgotten how to simply be without purpose. The exhaustion economy thrives on a particular type of person, the one who feels guilty for sitting still, who checks emails during dinner, who measures self-worth by hours worked rather than moments lived. It needs you to believe that your value is conditional on your output, that love must be earned through service, that rest is selfish. This isn't an accident. It's a carefully constructed worldview that serves those who profit from your perpetual motion. But here's what the exhaustion economy fears most: the person who discovers that they are valuable simply by existing. The individual who realizes that their worth isn't dependent on their productivity, that their right to rest isn't something to be earned, but something inherent to being human. This person becomes dangerous to systems built on exploitation because they've discovered the radical truth that being is enough. When you choose to rest without guilt, you're not just taking care of yourself, you're refusing to participate in a system that views human beings as machines that occasionally need maintenance. You're declaring that your existence has value beyond what you can produce, and that declaration threatens the foundation of a culture built on extraction. Chapter 2. The Spirituality of Stillness. Every major spiritual tradition understood something we've forgotten. Stillness is sacred. The Sabbath wasn't just a day off work, it was a rebellion against the Egyptian mindset that measured human worth by brick production. Buddhist meditation isn't about achieving something, it's about discovering what's already there when you stop trying to achieve. Christian contemplatives didn't retreat to monasteries to be lazy, they went there to remember who they were beneath all the doing. In stillness, we encounter what the mystics called the ground of being, Not the personality that performs, not the ego that produces, but the essential self that simply is. This self doesn't need to justify its existence through accomplishment. It doesn't derive worth from external validation. It exists as pure being, and in that existence finds complete sufficiency. Modern productivity culture is terrified of this encounter because a person who has met their essential self can no longer be motivated by external rewards and punishments. They've discovered an inner source of value that doesn't fluctuate with performance. They've found what Buddhist teachers call original face and Christian mystics termed true self, the part of you that exists before and beyond all activity. This is why genuine rest feels so threatening to those around you. When you rest without guilt, you model a different way of being. You show that it's possible to exist without constant justification, to be valuable without constant production. Your stillness becomes a mirror that reflects their own exhaustion, their own fear of stopping, their own disconnection from their essential worth. Rest at its deepest level is a spiritual practice. It's a return to the source of who you are before the world told you who you should be. It's a reconnection with the part of yourself that doesn't need to prove anything to anyone, including yourself. In a culture that profits from your spiritual amnesia, remembering who you are beneath all the doing becomes an act of profound rebellion. The mystics knew that God rested not because the divine was tired, but because rest itself is a divine attribute. In your willingness to be still, to produce nothing, to simply exist in the fullness of the present moment, you participate in something sacred that no economic system can quantify or extract. Chapter 3. The guilt complex. The guilt you feel when resting isn't natural, it's learned. Somewhere along the way, you absorb the message that your value is conditional, that love must be earned, that worth is measured by output. This guilt complex runs so deep that many people feel anxious when they have nothing to do, uncomfortable when they're not being useful, almost panicked when they're simply being instead of becoming. This guilt has roots in childhood messages about earning your keep, in religious distortions that conflated moral worth with work ethic, in cultural narratives that frame leisure as laziness and rest as irresponsibility. You learn to feel guilty for having needs, for taking up space, for existing without immediate purpose. The guilt became so internalized that you now police your own rest, ensuring you never fully escape the productivity mindset, even in your supposed downtime. But here's the psychological truth. The guilt you feel when resting is actually grief. It's the mourning of all the times you weren't allowed to simply be, all the moments your worth was questioned when you weren't producing, all the love that felt conditional on your performance. That guilt is your psyche's way of protecting you from rejection by ensuring you never stop being useful enough to deserve acceptance. The rebellion begins when you recognize this guilt as a foreign installation, not your authentic voice. Your true self doesn't feel guilty for existing. Your essential nature doesn't need to earn the right to rest. The part of you that feels guilty for stillness is the part that learned to survive in systems that measured your worth by your output. When you rest, despite the guilt, you're not just taking a break. You're healing generations of conditioning that taught humans they must justify their existence through production. You're refusing to pass on the trauma of conditional worth to the next generation. You're modeling what it looks like to exist without apology. The most revolutionary act isn't working harder or producing more. It's sitting still until the guilt transforms into grief, and sitting still until the grief transforms into gratitude for your inherent right to exist exactly as you are, producing nothing but your own precious being. Chapter 4. The productivity trap. We've been sold a lie about productivity. We've been told that efficiency is virtue, that optimization is evolution, that the goal of human existence is to produce maximum output with minimum input. But this productivity obsession has created something unprecedented in human history, a generation of people who feel guilty for being human. The productivity trap convinces you that there's always something more you could be doing, some way you could be optimizing your time, some method for extracting more value from your existence. It promises that if you just find the right system, the perfect morning routine, the optimal workflow, you'll finally be enough. But productivity culture is designed like addiction. It promises satisfaction while ensuring you never actually arrive at it. This trap is particularly insidious because it disguises exploitation as self-improvement. It takes your natural desire for growth and purpose and redirects it toward external systems that profit from your dissatisfaction with being human. It convinces you that your natural rhythms are flaws to be optimized rather than wisdom to be honored. Real productivity isn't about doing more things. It's about being fully present to what you're doing, whether that's working or resting. It's about alignment between your actions and your values, not alignment between your life and someone else's optimization system. The most productive thing you can do sometimes is absolutely nothing, because that nothing allows you to remember who you are and what actually matters to you. When you step out of the productivity trap, you discover something remarkable. You accomplish more by doing less. Not because you've found some new efficiency hack, but because you're no longer wasting energy fighting your own humanity. You're no longer burning calories on guilt and self-criticism. You're no longer depleting yourself, trying to be a machine that occasionally needs maintenance instead of a human being who is inherently whole. The rebellion against productivity culture isn't about becoming lazy. It's about reclaiming your right to exist in your natural rhythms, to rest when you need rest, to work when you feel called to work, and to trust that your being is valuable, independent of your doing. Chapter 5, The Revolutionary Act of Presence. In a world that profits from your distraction, your presence becomes revolutionary. In a culture that extracts value from your perpetual motion, your stillness becomes rebellion. When you choose to be fully present to this moment without trying to improve it, optimize it, or produce something from it, you're engaging in one of the most radical acts available to modern humans. Presence threatens the systems that need you scattered, anxious, and always reaching for the next thing. A present person can't be easily manipulated by promises of future satisfaction. A present person doesn't need to consume products to fill the void of feeling disconnected from their own life. A present person discovers that this moment, exactly as it is, contains everything they need. The revolution of rest isn't passive. It's an active choice to be present to your own existence without trying to improve, fix, or optimize it. It's the courage to discover that you are already enough, that this moment is already complete, that your life doesn't need to become anything other than what it is right now. This presence is what spiritual teachers have called the peace that passes understanding, and what psychologists recognize as the foundation of mental health. It's not a state you achieve through effort, but a recognition of what's already here when you stop trying to be anywhere else. When you rest in presence, you model for others what it looks like to be human without apology. You show that it's possible to exist without constant justification, to be valuable without constant production, to be worthy of love simply by being alive. This modeling is dangerous to systems built on scarcity and conditional worth because it reveals their lies. Your presence becomes a gift to everyone around you because presence is contagious. In a world of people trying to be elsewhere, trying to be someone else, trying to be more than they are, your willingness to be exactly where and who you are becomes a permission slip for others to do the same. Chapter 6. Reclaiming your sacred right. Rest is not a luxury to be earned. It's not a reward for good behavior or a consolation prize for exhaustion. Rest is your birthright, as natural and necessary as breathing. You don't need to justify your need for rest any more than you need to justify your need for air. Yet we live in a culture that has convinced you to apologize for being human. The sacred right to rest has been stolen from you gradually, so slowly that you didn't notice it happening. First, rest became something you had to earn through work. Then it became something you had to optimize for maximum recovery. Then it became another thing to feel guilty about if you weren't doing it right. Now, many people are so disconnected from their natural need for rest that they've forgotten what it feels like to be truly at peace. Reclaiming this right isn't about fighting external systems. Though that may happen naturally, it's about internal revolution. The decision to honor your own humanity regardless of what the world expects from you. It's about recognizing that your worth isn't debatable. Your need for rest isn't negotiable, and your right to exist without constant production isn't up for discussion. This reclamation begins with small acts of rebellion, taking a bath without your phone, sitting in silence without trying to meditate correctly, lying down without falling asleep, walking without a destination, eating without multitasking. These simple acts of pure being become revolutionary in a culture that has forgotten how to exist without purpose. The deeper rebellion is internal. It's the refusal to abandon yourself to meet external expectations. It's the decision to trust your own rhythms over productivity experts. It's the courage to value your inner life as much as your outer achievements. It's the recognition that your being is sacred, independent of your doing. When you reclaim your sacred right to rest, you don't just heal yourself. You heal the collective wound that tells humans they must justify their existence through production. You become part of the solution to a culture that has forgotten that being is enough, that presence is a gift, and that rest is a revolutionary act of self-love. As we close this exploration, I want you to understand something profound. Your exhaustion is not your fault, but your rest is your responsibility. The systems that profit from your perpetual motion didn't ask your permission to colonize your consciousness, but you have the power to reclaim your inner territory, one moment of stillness at a time. The rebellion of rest isn't about becoming lazy or unproductive. It's about remembering that you are a human being, not a human doing. It's about recognizing that your worth doesn't fluctuate with your output, that your value isn't conditional on your achievements, and that your right to exist peacefully in your own skin isn't something you need to earn. Every time you rest without guilt, you strike a blow against systems built on extraction. Every moment you exist without apology, you model for others what authentic humanity looks like. Every breath you take in stillness is a declaration that being is enough, that presence is valuable, and that you deserve to exist exactly as you are. The world needs your rebellion. It needs people who remember that rest is sacred, that stillness is powerful, and that the most revolutionary act in our exhausted culture is simply being fully, completely, unapologetically human. If this resonated with you, leave a comment about your own journey with rest and guilt. Share it with someone who needs permission to be human. Subscribe to walk deeper with us into the mind, soul, and mystery of what it means to be authentically alive in a world that profits from your spiritual amnesia. Your rest is not just personal healing, it's a gift to the collective awakening our world desperately needs.